Hi, my name is Pastor Hal York, and welcome to Truth in the Trenches. Today we're going to be in Proverbs chapter 26, verse 10. Like an archer who wounds everyone, so is he who hires a fool, or who hires those who pass by. Or some translations word that he who hires a drunkard. But the image in this verse is quite interesting. The first part, we have an archer who wounds everyone. And he says that's comparable or like someone who hires a fool or who hires a drunk or one passing by. Now, commentators they say they have no idea what this means, or they're very confused by it, or they say it's difficult to put together in the original language. And so there's not a whole lot of help from commentaries as to what this verse means. But I'd like to just share a few thoughts on what I think it means anyway, and hopefully you'll find it helpful. Like an archer who wounds everyone is the first statement. Now, obviously, a bow was a common weapon back in those days. It was used in battle, used for hunting. Even today, it still is used for hunting, not so much in battle, but certainly is used for hunting. And like a gun, it was a weapon that could be used from a distance, unlike using a sword, which is fighting up close and personal. I've never shot a real bow. The only bow I've ever shot was as a kid, and the arrows had little red suction cups on the end. It was really, in reality, more annoying than harmful to those I chose to use as targets. But this verse is describing a real bow and arrow. But there's certain implications we could make, and there's a few scenarios I want to give you just to help us think about this a little bit. I think one of the implications may be that the person using the bow does not know how to use it properly, or else they are just careless in their use of the bow. As you know, it takes strength to use a bow. There's a lot of tension when you pull it back, and if you're not strong enough when you pull it back, you already have the string on the bow, and the string slips out of your fingers, the arrow is going to fly and could possibly hit someone nearby. Because you don't aim a bow until you've pulled the string all the way back to its release point. And if the arrow is released before that, it could go anywhere. But one would think that if this happened more than once, someone would take the bow away from the person before they wounded anybody else, or certainly before they wounded everyone. Another thing I've heard trained archers say, or really anyone with common sense say, you never shoot an arrow straight up in the air, because what goes up must come down. And you have no idea where the arrow will land. It could wound or potentially kill someone, but not everyone. And so it's that little word "want," everyone, that just sort of hard to figure out. An archer who wounds everyone. Now, the angle I'm going to take on this is from the rest of the verse. He's talking about he who hires a fool. So he's talking about one fool, or one person who passes by, or one drunkard. He doesn't say fool who hires fools, but it hires a fool. And so I'm going to take our illustration from the archers, that the archer wounds everyone with one arrow. And it may be an exaggerated statement, or what is called a hyperbole, to help drive home or illustrate something else. And I think the exaggerated statement is this, that he's wounding everyone with one arrow. It's unlikely, yes, but what would that be like if it happened? It would be like one who hires a fool, or who hires a drunk, or one who passes by. The impact of one arrow points us to the impact of hiring one fool. Points to the impact hiring one fool can have on a company. It impacts everyone, especially in smaller companies or on a farm, etc. It impacts the productivity because resources that could be used to produce are now needed to overcome the ripple effects of hiring a fool. The morale of the employees is spiraling downward. The incompetence and laziness of the fool is affecting the performance of those around him and the effectiveness and efficiency of the company itself. Resources that could be used to help others and encourage others is all focused on what do we do with this fool that we just hired. The constant backbiting and critical spirit of the fool is weakening the resolve of his fellow workers. People who once enjoyed coming to work are starting to dread the thought. They've even started looking for work somewhere else. Now, the question we need to ask ourselves is this: can one person have that great an impact on a company, especially a smaller one? Well, absolutely. A fool doesn't care about the company's success. They don't care about their fellow employees. All they care about is themselves, the paycheck, the time off, the vacations. As they work, they're gossips, they're slanderers, they speak evil of the boss, they speak evil of other employees. And that kind of stuff spreads like wildfire. And the morale of the company starts to go south very quickly. The whole company, everyone is reeling from one wrong hiring mistake. Everyone has been wounded by one bad decision. And maybe some of you listening to this can relate to this. Maybe you're in your business. This is true in a church. It can be true on a team, a hockey team, a baseball team, a softball team, or whatever. And maybe the person you hired was a friend, or they owed someone a favor. And so they hired them with no character references. But the bottom line is it doesn't matter why they hired him. It matters who they were. They were a fool. And that foolishness has had a profound effect on the whole company, the foolishness of one fool. And the other one is who hires a drunk, one who's passing by. They just want a job. They don't know anything about the company. They don't know anything. You don't know anything about them. They don't know anything about you. Maybe it's a situation where it's hard to find workers. But no workers are not as bad as hiring a drunk or a foolish person. That's even worse than having nobody. They know nothing about what you do. They have no skill set to further the company. They are just looking for a paycheck to feed their addictions. They were just passing by. Yes, this is a hard verse to kind of put together, but I hope these few thoughts have given us some food for thought. But just as we close, let's take it from the HR department, the hiring department, to your home, into our living room where we can learn this and learn this very, very important principle that I think we see in this verse. Never underestimate the devastation or the upheaval or the lasting effects that one bad decision can have on your life. Everyone is wounded. It affects everyone in your life. Remember Achan in the story of Joshua chapter 7? They were told not to covet or to take any of the spoils from Jericho. And he took the robe and he took a brick of gold and he hid it. And Israel was defeated and God said there's sin in the camp. And so the chapter unfolds and they narrow it down to Achan's family and he confesses to what he'd done. And that one foolish decision affected everybody in his whole family. They all died. They were all stoned because of the foolish choice of the father. Never underestimate the devastation and upheaval that one bad decision can have on your life. Like an archer who wounds everyone with one choice, one arrow, such is the fool to those who hire him. It's a decision that can affect everything around you, your whole company, your whole church, your whole team, your whole life. So just keep that in mind and learn from that. Never underestimate the devastation one bad decision can have in your life. That may be the moral of this verse. May this truth guide us and guard us in the trenches of life, which is seek to live our lives for the glory of God and the good of others. May God bless.